Tethered, a Veilstatic FM transmission. Why the fuck are humans smarter now? That is the question that ended my career. That is the sentence, 7 words, spoken in a voice that had no right to come out of something that small, that I hear every time I close my eyes in the dark. Every time a road gets too quiet. Every time I'm tired and I see a flicker at the edge of headlights that aren't mine anymore because I don't drive at night. Not anymore. Not ever again. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the road, because that's where it starts. That's where it always starts, with a road and a man who thought he knew what he was doing. I drove long haul for 6 years. Cross-country routes, the big ones, the kind that take you through the soft underbelly of the continent, through places that don't have names on your GPS, through a kind of silence so complete it stops feeling like silence and starts feeling like something actively pressing in on you. I was good at it. I liked it, even. The solitude suited me back then. I was young. I thought solitude was the same as freedom. I know better now. The route that night cut through one of the longest dead zones I'd ever run. A corridor of highway between 2 large territorial borders, I won't say which, that stretch for 100 miles of nothing. Dense, old-growth pine forest on both sides. No towns. No truck stops. No cell signal. No radio. Just the drone of the diesel and the hypnotic pulse of the white lines in the dark and more dark after that. Drivers talked about that stretch at truck stops, the way old sailors used to talk about certain latitudes. Hit it in daylight if you can. Don't linger. Don't stop for anything. I'd run it twice before, always in daylight. My schedule that night gave me no choice. I entered the dead zone at midnight. I was already 10 hours into the shift. The coffee was long dead. The body was doing that low-power thing it does where thought becomes sluggish and the eyes start to see things in the peripheral dark that aren't quite there. I knew the signs. I'd fought them before. Slap the face. Roll down the window. Find something on a USB drive that's loud enough to keep the brainstem awake. I was doing all of that. Music too loud. Window cracked despite the cold. The October air outside tasted like pine resin and rain-soaked earth. The temperature had dropped into the low 40s. My headlights carved a pale tunnel through the black, and beyond that tunnel, nothing. An absolute void pressing against the glass. That was the world at 2:47 a.m. I remember the clock. That was when I saw the flicker. Right-hand shoulder, just at the outer edge of my headlight sweep, where the light loses its conviction and begins to bleed into nothing. A shape, small, low to the ground but upright. There for half a second, then swallowed by the dark as the rig rolled past. My first instinct was deer. My brain, desperate for a familiar explanation, offered up deer the way a defense attorney offers up reasonable doubt. But deer don't stand upright. Deer don't hold the posture I'd registered in that half-second, weight balanced, head slightly bowed, 2 limbs down, 2 limbs up. Human posture, child-sized. I told myself, you're tired, you're seeing things, the road does this, and I genuinely tried to believe it. I took a long swig of flat water, blinked hard, fixed my eyes on the center of the lane, kept driving. 30 seconds, a minute. The shape was already fading from memory, dissolving into the category of highway hallucinations I'd cataloged over 6 years. Then I checked my mirror. I don't know why I checked the passenger side mirror at that exact moment. Habit, probably, but I did. The trailer's red running lights lit the shoulder in a faint, blood-colored wash about 60 yards behind me. And standing there in that red-soaked darkness was a figure. Small still, unmoving. Not a deer, not a shadow, a child. The cold that moved through me in that moment was not the cold from the cracked window. It was internal. It was the cold of something that goes very wrong at the level of your DNA. A signal so old it predates language. This is not right. This is not natural. Something here wants to hurt you. But alongside it, fighting it, arguing with it, was another signal just as old. The one that makes us stop at accidents. The one that makes us reach for strangers drowning in the sea. That is a child, alone in the middle of nowhere in the dark. I fought myself for 4 seconds, 4 seconds that felt like drowning. Then I hit the brakes. The air brakes hissed like something alive. The rig groaned. I pulled onto the shoulder, put on the hazards, their yellow rhythm punching into the dark, and sat there gripping the wheel for a moment, just breathing, just listening to my own heartbeat doing things it shouldn't be doing at highway speeds. Then I reversed, slowly, watching the mirrors. The crunch of gravel under 60,000 pounds of truck was obscene in the silence, like something being broken that couldn't be repaired. It took almost 3 minutes to get back to the spot. It felt like 30. The child was still there. I stopped the cab roughly alongside them, switched on the high beams, took my first real look. Small, maybe 6 years old, maybe 7, pale, slight, dressed in what appeared to be pajamas, thin cotton, light-colored, printed with some faded pattern I couldn't quite make out. No coat, no shoes that I could see, bare feet on gravel that had to be cutting them. The child was not looking at me. They were oriented roughly parallel to the road, facing the tree line, walking at a pace that was unhurried, deliberate, almost ceremonial. As if my 18-wheeler pulling up alongside them, engine rumbling like a small earthquake, was simply none of their business. I killed the engine. The silence came down like a curtain falling. Crickets, wind moving through the high pines, the soft, rhythmic scuff of bare feet on gravel. I rolled down the window. "Hey," my voice came out hoarse, scraped raw by hours of nothing. "Hey, kid." Nothing, they kept walking. "Kid, are you okay?" The child stopped. Slowly, they turned their head just a fraction, enough to show me a pale sliver of cheek and jaw in the spillover of my headlights. No more. They didn't turn to face me. They didn't look at the truck. They just acknowledged that the sound had a source, the way you might acknowledge a television playing in another room. "Lost," the child said. One word, flat, dry, like a coin dropped into an empty tin. It should have been a relief. "Lost, that's something I can work with. That's a problem with a solution," I exhaled. Okay, that's all right. "Lost, we can fix. Are you hurt? Where are your parents?" The child turned more fully now, towards the truck, towards me. I still couldn't see the face properly. The angle was off, the light was hitting wrong, something kept their features in a shifting, sourceless shadow despite my high beams blazing directly at them. I registered the broad strokes only. Pale oval of a face, dark smudges where the eyes should be, small mouth, no expression. Not fear, not relief, not cold, not pain, nothing at all. "Home," they said, that same flat, papery voice. "I'm trying to get home." "Where's home? Is it close by? Did you come from a car, a campsite?" I already knew the answer. I'd been driving this stretch for the last 90 minutes. No cars on the shoulder. No campsites within 50 miles, nothing. The child didn't answer. Instead, they took a small step toward the truck, then another. "Why don't you come up here with me?" I said, keeping my voice as gentle as I could manage while my heart was doing 40 over the limit. "It's warm in here. I've got water. We'll drive until we get a signal and call someone to help you. That sound okay?" The child stopped about 5 feet from my running board, still in that blank, perfect stillness. The bare feet on gravel left no sound now. I noticed for the first time that they weren't shivering. The temperature was in the 40s. The child was wearing thin cotton pajamas and nothing else. They should have been hypothermic. They should have been shaking themselves to pieces. They were completely still. "Can you help me?" the child asked. "Yes," I said. "That's why I stopped. Come up." "Can you help me find the path?" The head tilted to one side. A small, quick movement. "It's right there, in the trees. I can almost see it. It's just dark. If you got out, if you stood by the door just for a moment, the light from the cab would reach it. I just need you to help me see." Something pulled tight in my chest. This was the moment. I know that now. This was the moment where everything had been designed to lead, from the flicker at the edge of the headlights to the word "lost" to the bare feet to the shivering that wasn't. All of it was architecture. A structure built to deliver one exhausted, guilt-loaded, big-hearted truck driver to the shoulder of a desolate highway at 3 in the morning, with a reason to step out of the cab. "I really think you should come inside," I said, and my voice had gone flat in a way I hadn't intended. "Please." The word was quiet, thin, with a new texture to it now, a hint of frailty, of pain, of desperate need. "My leg, it hurts. I can't walk much further, just the path, it's right there." I stared at them. I was trying to see the face, trying and failing. The light kept sliding off it, refusing to fix. I was trying to find something in the posture, the behavior, the quality of stillness that would make the screaming in my hindbrain quiet down. That was when I saw it. Not all at once. It came in pieces, the way terrible things often do. First the awareness that something is wrong with the picture, then the slow, reluctant assembly of what is wrong, as if the mind is delaying the conclusion because it knows the conclusion is something it won't be able to unknow. There was something behind the child. I told myself first, shadow, my headlights hitting them at an angle, casting a thick shadow toward the tree line. Then, rope. Something they were dragging, a piece of cloth snagged on debris. Then I looked harder, and the rationalizations collapsed one by one like buildings in an earthquake, and I saw what I was actually seeing. It emerged from the child's lower back, just below the hem of the pajama top at the base of the spine, or where the base of the spine would be, seamlessly, as if it had always been there, as if it was part of the child the same way a limb was part of the child, grown from the same source, natural and purposeful. A tube, a cord, thick as my forearm, matte black, darker than the darkness around it, absorbing the headlight rather than reflecting it, as if light itself refused to acknowledge it. It stretched behind the child, 10 feet, 15 feet, moving with a subtle, barely there flex, like something alive but deeply patient, deeply still. And then it disappeared between two pine trunks into the black core of the forest. An umbilical cord, made of shadow, made of nothing human, connecting the child to something inside those trees that I could not see and did not want to see. My mouth went dry. I heard my own breathing stop, then restart in a long, ragged pull. "Kid," my voice was someone else's voice coming from very far away. What is that, behind you?" The child's body tightened. Not dramatically, just a subtle contraction, the kind a person makes when something has been said that was not supposed to be said. The tilted head straightened. "What's what?" The voice was flat again, empty. "That thing," I was pointing. My hand was shaking. "That the thing coming out of your back, going into the trees, what is that?" "You're tired," the child said. "You're seeing things, you've been driving too long." My own words, my own earlier rationalization, spoken back at me in a papery child's voice. The precision of it was the most frightening thing I'd heard in my life up to that point. It knew what I'd been thinking. It had been listening before I stopped. "No," I said, and my voice was shaking badly now. "No, I see it, it's right there." The silence that followed was of a kind I cannot properly describe. Not the silence of an empty road or an empty room. The silence of something very large and very old and very patient deciding whether to bother with a different approach. The crickets had stopped. I hadn't noticed them stop. The wind had died. The trees weren't moving. There was no sound on earth except my own ragged breathing and the distant tick of the engine cooling. Then the child's face began to change. Not in the way horror films have trained us to expect: no splitting skin, no expanding jaw, no spill of darkness from the eyes. It was subtler than that, and for that subtlety, infinitely more terrible. The blankness on the face didn't leave. It sharpened, tightened the way a mask tightens when the face beneath it finally loses patience with the performance. The pale skin pulled taut. The dark smudges where the eyes should have been deepened, hollowed, like something very far back was drawing itself forward. And across those small, still features moved something that I have spent years failing to find a word for: not anger, not hunger, not frustration in any human sense. Something older, Something that had been doing a particular thing for a very long time and was experiencing, for the first time in a while, the irritation of failure. The air in the cab went thick, heavy, wrong in my lungs. "Come out of the truck." The voice. Oh God, the voice. It came from that small body, from that child-sized frame in its thin pajamas, but it was not a child's voice. It was not a human voice. It was deep and resonant and layered, the way a sound is layered when it comes from something that has no single point of origin, something distributed and vast and ancient. There was a grating quality underneath it, like enormous stones being dragged against one another deep underground. It vibrated in my sternum. It vibrated in my teeth. It was impossibly large for the body it came from, and it carried in it a weight of absolute authority, the expectation of compliance, the assumption of obedience, that was more frightening than anything else about it. "Come out now." My hand found the ignition key. "What are you?" I whispered. The child thing's head tilted. That jerky, angular movement it made, I'd thought it was childlike. It wasn't. Nothing about this was childlike. The tilt was mechanical, calculating, the way a predator angles its head when it's trying to locate the exact source of a sound. The expression, that tightened, hollowed, ancient expression, became something that might have been contempt. The contempt of something incomprehensibly old for something incomprehensibly small. And then it spoke for the last time. The voice ground itself up through that small body like gravel in a turbine. And it said, with the weight of every failure it had apparently accumulated, with the accumulated frustration of a hunter whose traps have stopped working, with an anger that was cosmic in its age and pettiness in its specificity. Why the fuck are humans smarter now? I don't remember turning the key. I remember the engine roaring to life, a violence of sound in that awful stillness, and the thing flinching back a single step. I remember slamming the gear home and the tires spinning on the gravel shoulder, that sickening half-second before they bit asphalt. I remember the truck lurching forward. I did not look at it as I left. I kept my eyes forward and I pushed the truck past every speed it should ever travel on a road like that in the dark, with a full trailer swaying behind me. I expected something to reach for the rig. I expected that cord, that dark, monstrous umbilical, to snap out and catch the trailer and pull me back like a fish on a line. I expected the child thing to run alongside me, keeping pace the way terrible things do in nightmares. None of that happened. When I finally broke and looked in my mirror, just once, just long enough, it was still standing on the shoulder, motionless. The dark cord still stretched behind it into the trees. It wasn't pursuing. It was just watching, patient, still, waiting for whatever came after me on this road. That patience, that absolute terrible patience, that was the thing that stayed with me longest. It wasn't angry. It wasn't urgent. It had done this 1,000 times and would do it 1,000 times more, and one failed attempt was barely worth nodding. There would be other trucks, other tired people, other nights. I drove until dawn broke over the eastern horizon like a gray wound healing. When my phone found a single bar of service, I pulled over and fell out of the cab and was sick on the gravel for a long time. I sat on the ground in the early cold, shaking, watching the sky lighten, and I tried to find a version of what I'd seen that fit inside the world as I understood it. I couldn't. I quit the run. I quit the job. I took something local, something that puts me home before dark. My former dispatcher called it burnout. My former colleagues called it quitter's nerves. I let them call it whatever they wanted. Here is what I know. That question, why the fuck are humans smarter now, contains a history. It contains the implication of before. Before, when people like me, tired, isolated, fundamentally decent, unable to ignore a child alone on a dark road, would simply step out of the cab when asked, would simply follow a small, barefooted figure into the trees, toward a path that was right there, just there, almost visible if only the light reached a little further. People who were never seen again, whose trucks were found idling on empty shoulders, whose disappearances were filed as fatigue-related accidents, as men wandering off into the night and simply failing to come back. It has been doing this for a very long time, and for most of that time it worked. Something changed. Maybe we got better at recognizing the feeling, that deep, instinctive wrongness that no amount of guilt and compassion can fully override. Maybe we got better at listening to the alarm bells instead of arguing them down. Maybe the stories started getting told, passed between drivers at truck stops in the small hours, half believed, half dismissed, but lodged somewhere in the back of the brain where it mattered. Whatever the reason, it noticed. Why the fuck are humans smarter now? Stay on the lit roads. Trust the fear when the fear has no explanation you can name. A lost child alone, barefoot, on a highway where no child should ever be, at 3 in the morning, it is not afraid. It is not cold. It does not look at you the way a lost child looks at something that might save it. It looks at you the way the anglerfish's light looks at everything that swims toward it in the deep. Keep driving. This has been a Veilstatic FM transmission. The road is long. The dark is patient. We'll see you at the next mile.